Hey, my name's Shanshan. I sell art on shanshan.co. Today we're going to review Moonfall. So it's a film by Roland Emmerich. I think he's done a few other sci-fi films. Time is 2 hours, so a really nice sweet spot. A little longer than an hour and a half I like, but I think for a sci-fi drama with a lot of characters, you need a little bit meat on the bone to kind of develop some of those characters. We have Halle plays Jocinda Fowler. Patrick Wilson plays Brian Harper. John Bradley plays Casey Houseman. Charlie Plummer plays Sonny Harper. Michael Pena plays Tom Lopez. Carolina Bartczak plays Brenda Lopez. So the story of this kind of nut job janitor who also does kind of NASA conspiracy spirits on his own. He discovers that the moon is actually out of alignment because he's able to kind of get into a university professor's office and kind of does moon studies on his own because he can't get into any science office at NASA or whatever. And he discovers the moon's out of a low orbit. He tries to warn people, but no one believes him. Eventually NASA finds out. They put a mission together and they're going to go to the moon to investigate. At the same time, the U.S. military is building kind of a backstop in case that mission fails or they don't figure out a solution. They can just nuke the moon, which is worst case scenario, right? So analysis-wise, it's really nice because even though it's produced by Tencent, which is a Chinese company, you don't feel it's overly propagandistic. I think they strove a good balance of having a tone of that. Probably they need to pass Chinese censors in China from the CCP, but it doesn't feel like overly patronizing, I think. They did have 2 scenes where the kids are like, look at my arm, I got this massive Chinese thing on it. That's kind of super tacky. It's like, oh my God, that wouldn't be like this big. It wouldn't be that big. But I mean, in movies, you kind of exaggerate the glasses and stuff, so maybe you had to just to visually come across in the film, but it looks super tacky. But it was a kind of a funny thing because the Chinese girl is like, yeah, it actually says the Jonah Brothers or whatever. Which a lot of people, they get these Chinese, characters on their arms, and they like the artist will put something stupid up, and people are like, why do you put that? It just says pride, power, strength, or whatever, But, it's a phase people go through with tattoos. It's kind of funny. There's this kind of really hardcore sci-fi idea that I think people that aren't into sci-fi are going to be like, what the hell are they talking about? They're smoking crack, right? But if you read a lot of sci-fi, I've read a lot of sci-fi, they have the idea of ring worlds, and then beyond that, you'd have whole planets that are built inside of other planets. And so this idea is the moon is actually a superstructure, and inside it's actually powered by a dwarf sun, which is kind of like, that's a little preposterous, just gravitationally wise, that would probably pull into the Earth, right into the dwarf sun, right? So in that way, it's a little unrealistic, but it kind of goes to the argument of, how does it keep the same orbit 400 miles away or whatever, a couple thousand miles away? I don't know. In the movie, it says 400 miles away. Maybe it is, but that sounds kind of close, right? The other kind of funny thing is they have this naive idea that AI will be good and it won't be self-aware until it becomes self-aware, and then it becomes evil. You're like, AI by definition is going to be self-aware. It's not really AI until it becomes self-aware, so it's kind of stupid to say it that way, but I think they were trying to get to the idea of AI will be good or AI will be bad, and right now that's kind of on the cusp of where human thinks AI, they see a lot of potential on the good side, maybe build a better Google, build a better eBay or something like that. That's kind of a good side of AI. A bad side is, you put it in the military and they decide to kill us off like Terminator, right? So who knows kind of where that's going to go. But this film kind of touches on the sense of good machines versus bad machines, a little bit like The Matrix, but I think in more naive sense than The Matrix was. The Matrix was at least kind of the machines were all mechanical still. Somehow the humans could still produce them, which seems like you could keep computers out of that perhaps. Again, naive because the computers would be on such a super level and they're building nanobytes, and once you computerize it to the nanobyte level, there's no way to fight it, right? They just enter your body and starts killing you or whatever. So a little bit naiveness, I think, on where the potential of AI could go in a bad sense, but it's a movie, right? You can't say AI is the end of the world and that's it, because that won't be a movie. So I like the idea there weren't too many characters. I think there was enough characters in here to kind of build a story, like a NASA astronaut. They have a falling out with NASA, and then his family, and then the fallout of him being thrown out of NASA, and that kind of destroys his marriage and loses his house. And the other girl has she's dating a military guy, and then they have a breakup for whatever reason. And so you have kind of these estranged relationships, which it's just enough to kind of keep the thing that the dad's in the military and he's going to be the one that turns the nuclear codes on. Girl becomes like second in command of NASA, so she's producing this new mission. The fallout astronaut comes back into the fold and becomes an astronaut again. So kind of a lot of different players, but just enough to kind of fill out the story without having too many characters. I think when they did Independence Day, it seemed like they had a lot of extra characters, which I don't know. I think they built a lot of too many characters, I would say. I mean, you had kind of the similar elements as in this film, but this film felt a little more succinct on the number of characters. Didn't feel too many. It's kind of interesting, the idea of like this one guy's going to stop an evil AI in the moon. I don't know how realistic it is, but it's just a fun idea. It just has an EMP bomb and blows him up. You have this great thing where the stepdad steps in and protects his daughter, which is kind of like a no-brainer, right? But it's good because a lot of these films, they'll have like the step-parents will be fighting and they'll be bitter rivals and stuff, and they have that. I think, not Independence Day, but there was a couple other films where it's very typical. They have a split in the family and there's this drama behind the scenes, which builds for great characters, so you want that in a film, but in this sense, it's kind of more realistic. The family kind of comes together when it's the end of the world scenario, so that's really good. And he's one of the stepdads, he sacrificed himself to save his daughter, so very paternal, which will sell well in the Chinese market, I think. There's this drama of when the astronaut kind of has the falling out from NASA, and he gets kicked out of NASA and everything, and NASA blames him for the whole accident that happens in space. You know, his son sees that a little kid, and then his son becomes embittered, and they don't really show that transition. They show like the little kid, and then all of a sudden he's a teenager misbehaving, but they could have had a really great story in there. And I think if they maybe gave like 2 minutes of film, they could have really developed some plot lines, how he becomes that little kid to a really traumatized teen. I think in the similar way, you saw that a lot in Terminator, where you have, or maybe I think it was Terminator 2, we have the son's growing up, and he's like, you know, he thinks his mom's crazy. There's like, these Terminator things, this is a total bullshit story, right? She's crazy. And then it turns out, oh no, it's a real Terminator. I gotta go see my mom. It's real, you know? So that was a really fun thing. And they could have had a little bit more built. They kind of cut that short, I think. They had enough there to kind of build a story, but they could have built it out a little more, flesh it out. The idea of the intergenerational humanity that came from the other side of the galaxy, and they built their own world, and then they came to the Earth and replanted the Earth. It's a very romantic version of humanity. It's possible, but at this point, you know, it doesn't seem possible, like, where we are in our own technology. You know, hopefully we get there one day. Obviously, people would like to be spacefaring species, I think. I think it'd be a really cool idea, especially from novel sense. But, you know, you got to solve some really crucial, like, the spatial rays and everything once you get outside of the magnetosphere of the Earth that protects humans and allows them to have a long life cycle. Once you get out of the atmosphere like that, you can be in a ship with oxygen and everything, but the gamma rays and all the stuff in space will really end up killing you, or stuff flying through 1,000 miles an hour and pierces through the spaceship can kill you. So they have a lot of, like, how do you solve that? How do you solve muscle decay and bone density decay? I mean, they're kind of getting on the muscle and the bone thing, but, you know, as far as protecting this, they really have to come up with shields like they have in Star Trek. Until they have that, you're really not going to have space travel, as well as, you know, the sense of traveling really fast. Right now, they can only, you know, as far as we know, you can only get up to light speed. You can't go any faster. And as everyone knows, when you study, the closest star is like a million light years away. So literally, you'd be traveling a million light years, and anything beyond like a couple generation traveling, I don't think people would survive mentally traveling that far alone and without touch of the Earth to kind of ground them mentally. You need kind of a big society to kind of ground you mentally. You don't have to be in a big city, but you have to be in a small town at least. And what you travel in a spaceship, I think it'd be too small and you break down mentally. So I don't know how realistic it is that we'd ever travel beyond our own galaxy. But I don't mean to poo-poo. It sounds like a great idea, right? The funny thing is, if you think about Tencent, they're like they're basically like an eBay within China, right? They kind of copy the ideas of eBay, and they basically do eBay. They do a little bit of chat as well. So kind of similar to eBay, but also kind of combined with Twitter kind of thing feel. But the ironic thing is they use AI in their own creation of all this software to build, you know, how to do an auction and all this stuff that they copy from eBay. It's basically an AI. So they're kind of, even though they're, you know, producing this, and it's kind of like we're going to battle AI. It's like, yeah, but you're making money off of producing AI that'll probably lead to this evil AI. So ironically, they're kind of building their own enemy if you think about it. But I think it's a fun film. I'd recommend it. I don't know if I collect it, but it's definitely a fun 1 or 2 watch, 3 watch film. If you like to subscribe, you can subscribe below. And I'll see you in the next movie review. Thanks for watching, guys.